pleased to be seated. We've got a longer meeting than normally, I think, for our last council meeting today. And I'd just like to say welcome to everybody here, particularly those families and supporters of our two retiring councillors. Welcome here. The sum of the years that both of these councillors have put into our community really belies our level of support today for them, but having you here is fantastic warmth that you give to them, and they'll feel it, I'm sure, later on. So welcome everybody. If we could just ask that phones on silent and to one side, and remind you that the meeting is now being live streamed. And I would ask Councillor Donaldson if we open with the council prayer, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. He inoi tātou. E te atua kaharawa, ko koe te tohu rangatira, te tohu mataranga. Mana ki tia mai mātou, o pononga I tēnei rā, e mahi nei I a mātou mahi, o te painga o ngā tangata o te kaunihera, o Rotorua. Takua mai, tau te rangi marie ki runga I a mātou I ngā wā katoa. Ko ihu karaiti hoki tō mātou ariki. Amene. And as my colleague Councillor Maxwell would say, because we're New Zealand's first bilingual city, in English, Almighty God, who alone is the leader of all mankind and the fountain of all knowledge, send thy blessing upon us, your servants, this day, as we strive to do all things good for the betterment of the people of the Rotorua district. May we be tolerant in ourselves at all times, through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen.
Thank you. I call for apologies, but there are none. So it's wonderful to have a full council complement and also members of the community board here today. For our last meeting, so we'll move on from apologies. Are there any declarations of interest? Councillor Kent.
Yes, Your Worship, I declare an interest with regards to recommendation 2.
Thank you. We'll deal with that when it comes. Thank you. Any urgent items not on the agenda? Councillor Donaldson first, and then Councillor... We'll take it in line. Councillor Bentley and then Councillor Gould.
Oops. Thank you, Worship. Look, I wanted to raise under urgency the matter of the Minister's letter of 3 days ago regarding SHA1, and why I'm raising it under urgency is I think we need to know, particularly in light of other ministers' comments on the lead item on the news last night, as to how councils will be directed, is clarification around should this council be making any decisions in respect of the minister's response on that application.
Well, it certainly is an issue of high interest, and I'll certainly allow that, but we'll go to other councillors before we come back to that discussion. Councillor Bentley, you wish to raise an item?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, I wish to ask that I understand we may well have a verbal update on the PC10 decision. Can we please have that in public included part of the meeting?
You are perfectly entitled to ask that. The reason why we've got that in confidential, it's an interim decision only at this stage, so it is still a live decision before the court. So that's why we've got it in confidential at this stage. Councillor Gould?
Two requests, Madam Chair. One is the court case next week by Dr. Wallace Bain with the accident in Arawa Street. Are the results going to be told to councillors, or do we read them in the Daily Post? Will the councillors...
Spain has made his decision public.
Can I reply, please, Madam Chair? As this is the last full council meeting on
Yes.
the 22nd of August, the council meeting will be either in late October or early November. Is there no chance of that being discussed?
The Chief Executive has advised when we are notified, we'll notify all councillors in that transition period of the outcome once we are notified. And your other item?
Second question is about the museum.
Yes.
As I've attended council meetings, I've been told by the Chief Executive that the cost of the rebuild is somewhere between 45 and 51 million. As the public information at the library indicates that the rebuild will be somewhere between 45 and 50 million, and we've got 50,100,000 from different trusts, which I can read them out now if you want.
No, we're all aware of that. We've all been...
The question is, on that public information at the library indicates 6 million for exhibitions at the museum. Is that extra 6 million going to come from ratepayers or raising through trusts? And the other question is, with the advice on as you advertised on council that it's fully funded, what happens if the tender goes over that particular price and who pays?
Point of order, Madam Chair, that's not an urgent item, that's speculation.
The whole item is speculation. So I'm not sure if you want to answer the exhibition component. That's not the rebuild. No. Councillor Stewart.
Chair, it was confirmed at the last council meeting in response to Councillor Gould and in response to a quote that I was saying that there were rumours going around the community that the rebuild of the museum was going to cost upwards of $90 million. The $50 million was confirmed at my last Operations and Monitoring Committee meeting, and we stand by that. The information at the library is correct. The $6 million for exhibition, I believe, is an issue that the new council will have to grapple with, and I think we should leave that on the table.
Yes, thank you. So that's clarified that item. That is not an urgent item. It would be nice if you said how wonderful it is that we got the funding. All of us should be applauding that at our last meeting, but that's something for the community to decide. Yes.
If I, through the chair, if I can just clarify, the focus for this particular time off for the museum is actually the restoration and the reopening of the museum building. That is the main attention and in fact, dare I say it, the total focus of the organisation at this particular time. And as stated last week, the museum restoration and opening is actually fully funded. There is still consideration, of course, in 2 years' time as to the nature of the exhibitions, but that is by far a secondary focus.
And I do notice, I think I saw the Honourable Fletcher Tabato. No. Oh, if he were here, I would have thanked him enormously for his contribution to helping us with that announcement, because he was unable to be part of such a positive community event. Right, we move Councillor Donaldson to your point. Oh, is Councillor Kent?
Yes, Your Worship. I just wish to query your statement with regard to the plan change 10. Personally, I don't see any reason why it shouldn't be discussed in open forum. Plus, the decision is actually already freely available on the Decisions and Publications website of the Ministry of Justice. So it is a public announcement of the decision of the first stage.
Yeah, of first stage, yes. Would you like to speak to that, Jeff?
Yeah, as Councillor Kent quite correctly pointed out, this is an interim decision of a two-stage court process. Sorry. Right, I'll speak directly into it, sorry. My apologies. So, as Councillor Kent has already said, this is an interim decision of a two-stage process. So what we are able to discuss are matters of fact that have actually been reported by the court already. What we of course can't discuss is any matters pertaining to legal strategy overall for the second process. That cannot be actually clearly, for obvious reasons, discussed in an open forum.
Thank you. At this stage. Thank you. Now, Councillor Donaldson, do you wish to speak to your urgent item?
Thank you, Worship. I believe all councillors were circulated a copy of Minister Wood's letter, which has declined SHA 1 application by this council, which was supported by the whole council, actually, the application to go forward. So the opportunity for up to 80 houses, affordable houses for Nongataha, has been lost. And yet on the news last night, we had other ministers saying that the lines would be blurred between urban and rural, and councils would be directed to blur those lines and to make land available for housing. So what I'm seeking is some sort of guidance from the executive. Is there a decision we should be making? Just yesterday, I was telephoned by a reporter from the Daily Post asking what is being done about the 2,700 people in taxpayer-assisted motel accommodation in Rotorua. We're the second highest district or city for people in assisted accommodation. And your Worship, you were only out 2 days ago with Housing New Zealand looking at what they're doing about it, but we still have a critical shortage in Rotorua. So really, I'm just seeking is the clarification. It would appear that that the government is talking with two tongues on this issue, and that, in my opinion, is simply caved in to political lobbying on this matter, and that is a real concern for council and concern for housing affordability in Rotorua going forward. I note also that a person who lives adjacent to the land in question and who is at the forefront of that lobbying is actually standing for council, and I just am amazed by that. So that's the issue I want raised. Is council in a position to do anything about this decision of the minister?
So thank you, Henry, for coming to just clarify the process again for us and remind us the steps that this council undertook in the best interests of trying to support opening up land for development. Thank you, Henry.
Kia ora, Madam Chair and kia ora koutou councillors. Look, I think you're right. It's worth just stepping back probably through this process to bring us to where we've got to now, and that will hopefully provide the information you need for the discussion you want to have. So fundamentally, this was an area of land identified in Rotorua's spatial plan as an area for potential development and expansion of the housing supply. At around the same time the spatial plan was going through, the council entered into a housing accord with government, which identified an issue for us as a district in terms of our shortage of housing in the face of what they describe as a medium growth council. So we entered into a housing accord with government. What that housing accord enabled us to do was make applications or put recommendations through to the minister to have particular areas declared as special housing areas. So it was a new mechanism the government introduced through a standalone piece of legislation to try and speed up housing development in those areas where it was needed. Effectively, the process is it's effectively a fast-track zoning process. So developer of land came to us. We talked about the best way to go forward, and we talked through the option of using the special housing area mechanism. So information was put through to council, which essentially said, here's the base information required in terms of what's needed to make a decision on potential development of this land. At that time, it was about a 16-hectare piece of land. There actually was another application that came through at the same time. You'll remember there was what we called SHA 1 and SHA 2 came through at the same time. The one we're talking about now is about a 16-hectare piece of land, And at that stage, the council made a decision to push the application through to the minister as a recommendation. And essentially the recommendation that goes to the minister is that the land which is currently zoned what they call Rural 2, which enables limited development really for lifestyle blocks, should be zoned residential. And the case that was put through to the minister was that this land has the potential to carry somewhere in the vicinity of 190 houses. And I think it's probably important just to keep reiterating, weren't asking the minister for approval to build 190 houses. The approval we're asking for was essentially a relatively high-level zoning decision, which would say, yep, we're happy to see this land rezoned, and we understand what you're saying, and it's got the potential to hold this many houses, but you'll have to still, not us, but the developer will have to apply for consents for for any building to take place. So what it's doing is essentially putting an overlay over the top and saying residential land, and then the consenting process needs to happen. What then happened, and sorry, it's a little bit of a story, what then happened obviously was the flood event in April 2018. The minister had the application at that stage, and after considering it, pushed it back to us and said, look, we want this rechecked in light of the new information that came out of the April flood event. So essentially the application went back to the developer's expert advisors and the regional council to relook at the case for change. And what they did is they got advice from one of the leading flood stormwater experts in the country, a firm called PDP. They worked with the regional council, and based on the best information they had, they redrew the flood hazard information for the site. So essentially they mapped the whole site, and they identified where the line was for what they call a 1 in 100 event and below, and then they redesigned their application to ensure any proposed development that would take place above that line. So what came back and went back to the minister was a redesigned proposal based on new information about flood hazards on the site. It was redesigned so it would take, I think, a capacity of 80 houses, and it would take place over around about 10 hectares of the 16 hectare site. And the advice we got from the consultants and from PDP was that this council can be confident that the expert information that's been obtained supports this potential development. Always saying subject to any detailed assessment that will need to take place at a consenting stage. So they were confident, based on the best information they had, that this land could support the 80 houses. They identified where they could happen, and they identified along with the regional council that before a final decision was made on where a particular house might be, more detailed assessment would need to take place, which is a normal part of the consenting process. And that's essentially where we've got to now. So that was what was being considered by the minister. The minister's effectively come back, and you've got the letter in front of you saying, look, can understand the drivers behind this, but has identified that in her view there are complexities which mean it would be better going through the normal, longer RMA process.
So, oh yes, question.
Yeah, just for clarification, Your Worship. So, Henry, that flood line that was drawn for that 1 in 100 year event, if any of the sites above that, of the 80 sites above that flood line, were flooded in an event, how much of existing nongataha would likely be flooded as well? Do we know?
Look, I wouldn't answer that except to say, look, if you've got an event over the 1 in 100, we are going to get significant impact across the whole district.
Yeah. Councillor Stewart?
Worship, just in clarification, Henry, the situation at Nongata on the Nongata Road, straight opposite Wikaraka Street's northern entrance. Where does that leave the developer now? Even though the Special Housing Authority has turned down the application, where does that leave the developer? He can still, above that flood line, make application through the normal resource management process to apply for 80 dwellings to be built on those sites. Can you
through you,
that, please?
yep, through you, Madam Chair. One thing I didn't mention was that the special housing legislation has effectively a drop-dead date of round about, I think, the middle of September. So that pathway has gone in terms of new applications under the special housing legislation. Look, fundamentally, the options would be that the land is currently zoned rural 2. That enables lifestyle blocks, I think, of up to about 4,000 square metres, and on his land, depending on where you'd put them, maybe 20, 25, you could do effectively as of right, subject obviously to meeting any other requirements. Second is, yep, you could apply for a consent anyway. It would be a non-complying activity. So obviously the tests in terms of getting extensive development through the normal consenting process are quite tough. And third, I guess, a plan change through the normal planning process. But again, it would be unusual and pretty arduous to do it for a single piece of land of that size to push a plan change through. So fundamentally, go for what's allowed under the existing, push for what you want under the existing, knowing that the rules aren't in your favour, or pushing for a standalone plan change through the normal process.
Councillor Hunt, then Councillor Maxwell.
Just from the RMA Policy Committee, I'd just like to register our disappointment at this level. We were encouraged to use this legislation. It was put in urgently for the country, and the government said, find a piece of land. We'd already established one in our spatial plan. We had it marked out. Number of people in that community, including the owner of the 4 Square, couldn't wait for this development to come through. We now hear last night on the news, for those high growth areas, that they're telling, blur the lines, do exactly what we have done here, and yet we've done that and we've been knocked back. And the Minister actually said we've got to ignore NIMBYism. Now this is a classic case of NIMBYism out in Rangataha and political posturing. Now this derails many good projects, and we cannot continue to allow this to happen. So I, for one, would like to support Councillor Donaldson's suggestion that we make some contact with the Minister about this. We actually, it feels like the left hand does not know what the right hand is doing. We've got about 8 councils around the country. Yes, they're high growth, but we're medium growth. We know that this land is needed, and we know that this land is good land to build on, albeit that there was a flood. The housing, the plan that came out was never going to be built in those flood-prone areas. We've had expert advice. It's been reduced to 80 houses. This is a perfect example for us to deal with our housing crisis, to put more houses out there in the market in an area that is ripe for development. So I think that we need to have another go at this. The legislation's dead. However, I think that we need to say, well, okay, you've said to those high growth councils on the news last night to blur those lines. Tell us how we can blur those lines here too. Because to go through a private plan change or to just put 20 houses where 80 could fit, and we all know that we don't want more lifestyle blocks because it's an uneconomical use of the land. So let's see what else we can do and make an approach to the Minister to see how we can actually move this forward in line with what is central government policy. So I believe this decision was made possibly out of step with what they've now come out with now, and I think that I'd like that this council to address that. It obviously may be in this term, that's up to the Chief Executive, or it may be in the next term, but I certainly, as Chair of the RMA Policy Committee, suggest we take that step.
Thank you, Karen. Councillor Maxwell and then Councillor Rotorua.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. First of all, we all know we have a housing problem in our district, and that's why we look forward to SH1 and SH2 as something that's going to address some of the problems, and especially out our way. So coming to the question, Henry, Does this jeopardize any other opportunities that may happen for the areas like Awaho, Waititi, and in the Nongata area that mightn't be a special housing application, but might be for some other things? Is this flooding report going to jeopardize their endeavours to do something with their land?
Through you, Madam Chair, I don't think so. The requirements in terms of building and ensuring your building mitigates against any hazard risk and keeps people safe don't change either way. They didn't change under the SHA proposal. Individual lot owners who were building would still have had to satisfy those requirements. You know, we've got good information about flood hazard now. People need to build accordingly. They need to build in a way that mitigates against that risk. So, yeah, no one's walking away from the need to build safely.
Councillor Rotorua.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, well, we can all be disappointed, but I actually think we should have seen it coming. I think special housing accords were never, I think they were flawed right from the start. They were put in at haste by the government to try and address the housing crisis, which the previous government never acknowledged. At least this government is acknowledging it. But the uptake around the country has not been there on the special housing accords. And I think everybody is jittery about flooding in Nongataha. That I think is one of the major reasons why when we sat here, we talked about it, we were all rather jittery. I mean, we say this is not in the, where, you know, the flooding. If it comes, forget about 100 years, we're going to get flooding, you know, often. And if it comes, we were convinced that these houses would not be affected. Well, we can't say that. And I think that's possibly, I don't know what the minister's decision is based on. But over the past, when developers have come to us, they've said that they've had no end of trouble trying to get housing built here in Rotorua. So because we've been let down this time, we're jumping up and down about it. We should be saying, in the future, when anything comes, it doesn't matter if this one's gone south, we should be saying anything that comes on the table from a developer in the future, we'll do everything we can to actually assist them to get the housing that's absolutely crucial for Rotorua. So, disappointed, yes. We should definitely get back to the minister and register our disappointment and talk about the serious housing issue that we have in Rotorua. But at the same time, we shouldn't say, well, this was a special housing accord, now we're going to cry about it. We should say to any developer, we'll look at it, and why can't we do some of the fast tracking that we did in this case here ourselves. I don't think we should just say, well, special housing accord, that's what we needed. No, we need other mechanisms to get housing for the people of Rotorua.
Councillor Kumar.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Sorry, yesterday I must have missed where the news came from about the council informing us that we should use blurred lines to sort of carry on with high growth. Maybe we are a medium growth, so it doesn't really affect us or give us that advantage. But yesterday I chose in a cold afternoon to be tucked up with my wife and enjoy a rare, nice afternoon. Mm-hmm. So along those lines, having heard over here today that I can't see the correlation between us being the second highest in 2,700 or 800 people living in motels and hotels, funded through the welfare system, do have any direct correlation to affordable housing. I mean, if these people were to be moved out of the hotels and motels, would we place them in those affordable housings that we are suggesting? If we were to build 80, how would they then afford that affordable housing? How affordable is affordable housing?
Goodness me.
So, and the other thing is we're speculating as to what it could be if we were to build. There's no direct report or result or suggestion that would have suggested otherwise. We're sitting over here speculating, oh, this could be. So I think to suggest over here that lobbyists and NIMBYs have influenced the decision of the minister is to say that central government has probably not listened to the wider facts and just listened to the NIMBYs and the people that it only affects.
Kia ora.
Thank you.
Kia ora.
Councillor Kent.
Thank you, Your Worship. I agree with Councillor Rukara-Tate. I believe the SHA legislation was flawed from the outset, and the signal for that came when they said suddenly, right in the middle of this application, we're not going to take any more applications after a certain deadline. The writing was on the wall then and there. The government basically were backing out of the legislation they'd passed. I would like to suggest we go back to the Minister and now say, well, okay, you've stopped that piece of legislation. What are you actually going to do that's practical to help us build houses in Rotorua? Because throwing bureaucrats at it sure as hell ain't going to fix anything.
Kia ora.
Yeah, what I'm disappointed about was that the decision has taken so long to come out from government. You know, that decision should have come out months and months ago, which would give this council a chance to go through the process, find out alternative methods and increase housing for Rotorua.
Interesting responses from everybody. This is dead. This application is dead. There's no way, Councillor Gould, that this could have gone through earlier. I think if you heard from Henry, it had to be adjusted after the April floods, and we were jittery. And that developer adjusted it accordingly. He had no intention ever of building in flood-prone land. That was never there. We were shown the maps. We supported the spatial plan. We said Nongataha needs housing. Yeah. All of us. Yeah. And then after the floods, we were captured. We were captured by a mayoral candidate now and a political lobby group that has said, not in Nongataha. They went in collectively and said that this mustn't go through, and that is outrageous. I withheld and waited for a process, and that's what's come to us today. So petty local politics and lobbying to the minister that I understand happened has actually interfered with what should have been a hands-clean process. And that is NIMBYism, and that is politics at the worst level. And it happened outside of this council table, and yet there are councillors sitting around here that are standing for re-election and allowed that to happen. I was at and speaking on behalf of mayors of New Zealand at a conference on building nations, and I was talking about localism, and this is a classic one where I think we should be applauded that we grabbed a mechanism that was before us at that time and said, this is a good mechanism at this stage, it's there for us, and we used it. And Kate Tapai, it's been voted against, but I certainly will be going to the minister to say, on one hand, there's announcements saying blur the lines, don't let NIMBYism rule, don't let petty politics get in the way, and for goodness sake, open up our land for housing. We've got 2,700 people waiting on a waiting list. I wonder if some of those councillors have ever met them, either in motels sitting there, and I met a family the day before this announcement, not knowing it was coming, who has been housed in a Housing New Zealand house, 4 of them, who were in a motel unit for months. That is a single room and 4 adults, 2 sick elderly people. I don't want that to happen. Understanding the pipeline of housing development means open up more land for development. And that's exactly what we did. We did the right thing, councillors. And then a group lobbied, and they lobbied ruthlessly on the backs of some of those who were affected in the flood. And that was outrageous to me, to hold a public meeting to say, let's fight this council about not doing their job in that flood, and that's come to pass, where we see that we are now working with Regional Council and we're doing all the right mitigation. And yes, Councillor Rotorua, we were jittery. I was particularly jittery because my family were affected while all this petty lobbying was going on around them. We've got to be bigger than that. We've got to show leadership that housing matters in our community. And I want to lead that after the election.
Kia ora, Steve.
So this has been sabotaged. It has been sabotaged again by petty politics. And I think it's outrageous. I think we did all the right steps, Council, and I will talk to the Minister. In fact, I had the ear of two, but it wasn't the one that made this decision. And it's sort of ironic, and it's deeply frustrating. So that I will undertake. We can't go through a process at this stage other than use the tools we've got, and that's talking to our ministers. So there is no decision. Thank you for clarifying it, Henry. But all of us should feel outraged. We've let down our community. We've let down our community through petty politics, and that's about housing people decently. In our vision, we said we would provide decent houses, houses that met people's needs. And this is one of the answers for meeting those needs. So thank you, Henry. There's more work for me to do, and it certainly will become an issue in the next 7 weeks. Right, we'll now move on. We've answered all the urgent items on the agenda. Now we move to the confirmation of council minutes of the 25th of July. Do I have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Tapson. Your second, Councillor. Oh, well, why don't we change the rules for the last time? We'll let Councillor Sturt move and Councillor Hunt second. All those in favour that this is a true and accurate record? Aye. Contrary? Carried. Right, recommendations from other committees. Is there a mover and a seconder to receive the report? Recommendations from other committees. Moved Councillor Gould, seconded Councillor Rotorua. We'll take them one at a time. That the following recommendation, you've got it up there, yes, from the Strategy, Policy and Finance Committee held on the 8th of August be adopted. Do I have a mover? Thank you. Seconded. Is there any clarification? No. All those in favour, please say aye. Contrary? Carried. The seconder was Councillor Hunt. Yeah. Delegations, recommendation 1, delegations to the Chief Executive during the interim election period. You move. Thanks, Councillor Sturt. Seconder, Councillor Maxwell. There appears to be no discussion on that. We're already in the interim period. I'm going to put that motion to the vote. All those in favour, please say aye. Contrary? Carried. Recommendation 2, the amendment to dangerous and unsanitary buildings policy. That Council agrees that the dangerous, affected and buildings policy be approved for public consultation under Section 83 of the Local Government Act. Moved. Thank you. Councillor Gould. Seconder, Councillor Donaldson. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Contrary? Carried. The next is the lease extension for Fire and Emergency New Zealand at Acacia Road. Yes, Lake Okaraka. You'll move. Second, thank you, Councillor Gould. That Council agree the term of the lease for Fens is extended to 33 years with one right of renewal for 33 years. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Contrary? Carried. We move now to staff reports, page 18. A recommendation, Motorsport Bay of Plenty Tarmac Hill Climb, objection to road closure. Do I have a mover and a seconder to receive the report? Councillor Hunt, Councillor Kent to second. that the report Motorsport Bay of Plenty Tarmac Hill Climb objection to road closure be received. All those in favour, please say aye. Contrary?
Closure of the roads for the event. I'll move that way. Madam Chair, in speaking to this motion, this has come to this council table every year since I've been here, and I think it's about time that the council does approve the temporary road closure, but the organisers be pointed out the issues that the objectives continually have about the running of this event, and the general risks are on page 19. They might seem minor to us. I'm not in the farming industry, but particularly with deer and cattle, those 5 areas that are objective specific need to be pointed out to the organisers. So on that basis, if that is done, I have moved that it be approved in this instance.
Councillor Donaldson, you're there too if someone wants to seek clarification. Councillor Donaldson.
Thank you, Your Worship. Actually, I don't need any clarification because, as Councillor Sturt points out, this matter has come before us on numerous previous occasions. And I note that the Kaharoa community, the wider Kaharoa community and the school are involved in supporting the event. And generally, there is support within the community. There's just this one objector who has the opportunity to mitigate risks to stock in full knowledge, and the very responsible event organiser is doing everything they can in terms of safety as well. So I'll be in support of the motion.
Thank you. You have a question for clarification? Yeah. No, he's not going to speak, Councillor Gould. It's if you have a question.
I'm in favour of this. I believe this particular road, there's no road better in the Rotorua area for this type of event. I also believe that the hill climb does bring a lot of visitors to Rotorua, and it is a huge benefit for the Rotorua community.
That's right. We don't need to all speak, I don't think, unless there's anybody that wishes to speak against the motion as proposed by Councillor Sturt. He is not. So I'm going to put the motion. All those in favour?
Point of order.
Yes.
Your Worship, we need the words "all declines" removed.
Take it out. That's the motion. Yeah. That council approves. So we'll reread it. That council approves. Yes, we're not going to be swingers. That council approves the temporary closure of the roads for the event. All those in favour, please say aye. Contrary? Carried. And now we get to a special part of our council meeting today, our last meeting. And just for the public, after this we'll be asking to go into public excluded for items that I'll list later. But now it's for us to have a wrap-up of the end of this triennial. And I just want to say to all councillors, thank you for your contribution over this term. I've been particularly well supported, I have to say. It's not only the work at this council table that makes a community feel included in what we're doing. It's all of the many community events that you've all gone to when asked. It's the civic ceremonies that we have here, the orientation of new staff, the porphyry, particularly the citizenship ceremony. There's so many of them that I feel well supported when you come. And the public knows those that work very hard in that aspect of doing civic duty. I also want to thank you, Jeff, and your executive team and all the council staff. You have answered every councillor's request, and that's the role of a chief executive. And it's not an easy role, but I think we learnt so much better this time that questions of council staff have to be channeled through the Chief Executive, which has made his workload rather enormous. But you've got back to us, and you've also supported councillors who've got little concerns or niggles, and I thank you for that. Thank the Executive. You come under a fair amount of pressure, and in local body politics, you cannot ever defend yourself. And I think that's a particularly hard role for you on the Executive. When you want to defend the defensible, you can only really do that through the Chief Executive. But that is governance. So I thank you, all of the staff. You're marvellous how you look after us, the little things at council meetings, the little things that we have that you rush around and look after for us and make sure that we can get on and do our duty. So thank you. And now to the two councillors that are leaving, retiring. And it is a very strange feeling, but I congratulate you both before we get to each of you individually for your contribution. And they're both very different. So it's a lovely day to speak about you both. Karen, you're going to be speaking first, so I'll mention your contribution first. 12 years. 12 years is a very good time. 3 terms is a very good length of time. Yeah, 4 terms of 3. And you've made a decision, and that's a wonderful thing for yourself and Greg and your family. And I understand that, and we all understand that. You're fearless, you're ethical, you're very, very loyal. I know people say team this and team that. You're loyal to doing the work of a councillor and doing it well. You are an incredibly valued team player, supporting others. And the other bit about you that I really enjoy, you're incredibly well researched. So your attention to detail is meticulous. You've been an incredible advocate for women. She still works through Zonta and now the defunct National Council of Women locally. And Karen is now on the National Database for Women as Directors. And so that's the skills and governance that all of us should leave when we leave this council. So you will be ready for other tasks, but we do want you to have a break. You're always incredibly well prepared. We particularly felt confident about the RMA Policy Committee. We were nervous, really. Remember when we decided would we have it? And that committee has worked incredibly well. And I know you've had your tensions, and I think that's a good thing. Tension is a good thing around any governance table. You've also affied others. I know Gina Mohi has felt that she's enjoyed that relationship with you. So we learn from one another. And I like that mentoring through of other councillors. You were also on that terribly long district plan review process that seemed to go on in that room out there for an awfully long time, and we all trusted it. And that's the role of a full council, to trust those with skills doing another job. You also worked, and Councillor Serenk was on that, and Councillor Wepper with you. Would have been interesting, the 3 of you together actually, but I was never a fly on that wall. You also chaired the quasi-legal licensing committee, and that's not an easy committee either. So you undertook some challenging roles. I enjoyed your role as the portfolio lead in the inner city revitalisation. Stuff happened. You made it happen. And that started to give us a belief in ourselves about our city heart coming alive for our people. Then you went on to the Lakefront Committee, and that's been exciting. And I must say that the comments that are coming nationally at this symposium are just aghast about the extent of that project. You once could have stood for mayor, but I think you made a personal decision that family life and personal life was more important. You've been there, a model councillor at every event, and I thank you for that. I particularly loved the way you learnt on the partnership agreement. And it opened your eyes to something quite new and very, very valuable, because you had an open heart and an open mind. And it was lovely to have senior councillors with us at the signing of that partnership down at Tamata Kapua. You've got a very high community profile, and you know, she often laughs about those that don't like her style, but at least she's noticed. And I like that about you. You are an obsessive about health and wellness. That's a good thing. She can get on with it now, team. I hear she's got a new bike. You've been a great supporter of that platform of our building a healthy community, and I've really enjoyed that beside you. I haven't enjoyed your personal diet advocacy, but we have enjoyed your contribution, and you have been involved in this Vision 2030 for the last 6 years, and I think that's where we've seen your true political adeptness thrive. So we wish you well. Now to Councillor, I've got it here somewhere, I had to think about it. Yeah, Councillor Charles Sturt, 33 years. It's incredible. It's more than half your life, Charles. And sitting behind you too. Look at them. Don't look at them. Don't. You keep looking this way, Charles. Just look at me. Are your family, are your friends in your community, and they've come here for you today. It's quite ironic, Charles, that the big boost that we're leaving this triennial on is localism, and that localism and our people matter. And you're an incredible battler for local people, for those that don't have a voice, that those that feel processes are too complex around them, and those that give up. You're an advocate for the people's voice. I think the last 6 years for you have been your happiest. You've put aside, I think the petty politics that once existed. You've enjoyed being the chair of the Finance and Strategy Committee, Operations and Monitoring Committee, but you've loved most having that sports and recreation portfolio. I did lovingly call you my Minister of Sport, because I didn't know who were the All Blacks that I should mention, or I didn't know who were the touch people, who were stars, but you did, and you reminded me when we were out at events. So that was a lovely thing to see you flourish with that role, and you leave a legacy with your contribution to that role. You also understood rates and valuations like no other councillor, but I wonder why. It's probably your professional life. You learnt to remove yourself from conflicts of interest, and that was something that we all learnt about governance, actually. I think back to the Western Road subsidence and also the special housing area in Nongataha and the flood. You knew that you would be too passionate and probably not objective enough, and so you removed yourself from that, and I thank you for that professional governance skill. You battled centralism. I love you. But I didn't enjoy you in the fluoride debate. So councillors are allowed to have their own individual belief system and value system and hold on to it and fight it at the governance table, and that's where you put it, and then you bore no disrespect outside of here. I enjoyed you for that. You were as ferocious about animal control, and also you knew about the Building Act and the Building Code, so you brought great skills to the table. I worked with you on the North Ward in Nongataha, and it's lovely to see them all here today. They've come to support you, and we had great battles then, but actually I prefer councillors at large. You've always had Nongi in your heart, but you've acted as a councillor at large, and I've enjoyed that. There is another aspect of you, Charles, that I think is incredible, and it's the resonance of where you grew up and your links with Hapu and Marae. You've been really great on the Kauai Cemetery Trust. People don't know that in the community, You've been amazing on the Gifted Reserves Trust, and you've sat at that table showing your empathy and understanding for things Māori that matter in our town, and your decisions that you've supported have reflected that, particularly your staunch support over the partnership. You never ever resiled, and neither did Karen. So we lose two wonderful battlers, two staunch individuals, but we understand that you've made a decision, and so we look forward to seeing you come into council, take an active interest, and participate in the community life that loves you and has shaped your politics. We wish you well. So now we'll ask Karen, you're starting. These two worked it out themselves. So Karen, it is over to you, and we want to hear your eulogy. We call it a eulogy.
Thank you, and I will glance at my notes so I don't lose track of it, but it is a great pleasure for me to be here today for my last speech as I reflect on my 12 years as a councillor. There are a number of projects of which I'm extremely proud to have been a part of, and the Te Arawa partnership in particular is deeply significant to me. And I have loved working with for the past 12 years with the community on lakes water quality issues, from the community board to the Te Arawa Lakes Strategy Group. And this remains a long-term interest of mine. It started shortly after I was born and will continue, the work will continue long after I have gone. I jumped at the chance to have input into the 2030 vision for Rotorua, including work with the community on the inner city revitalisation and all the other 2030 goals, which we're really aiming to make our home a better place to live in, our city, the place where everyone loves to be. I've enjoyed wide-ranging roles that I've been able to be involved in, from the planning and policy work with the district plan, as you mentioned, which did go on for 7.5 months, the alcohol licensing, to the artistic and creative aspects of supporting and promoting public art. I'm delighted that work is now happening on the lakefront, Sir Howard Morrison Performing Arts Centre, the museum, and the Whakarewarewa Forest. And I look forward to seeing the completion of these projects under the new council. I have found my work to be invigorating, stimulating, and only very occasionally frustrating. I have a lot to be grateful for I have had the opportunity to work alongside some outstanding members of our fantastic staff and the very passionate members of our community who care deeply about our district and the residents who call Rotorua home. These last 12 years have been a significant part of my life. I can't even go on holiday without looking at infrastructure, drainage, roading, and major art. Holidays will never be the same again for me, although I may take a few more. A huge thank you, Steve, Dave, the rest of my council colleagues, and Jeff, for the support you have given me for the causes I've championed, the projects I have led, and the partnerships I have worked with, and the principles that I have stood up for. Lastly, a big heartfelt thank you to the people of Rotorua who voted me in, and it was actually the North Ward. A heartfelt thank you to my husband Greg, who has supported me throughout these 12 years, and to my friends, some of whom are here today. I thank you all, and it's been a wonderful 12 years, and I wish all of you the very best for the future. Thank you.
Join. It's a community society, the Lakes Water Quality Society, that keep advocating for our waters. Councillor Stewart Charles.
Hey, wana. Te hei ki te wairu a kupe, tina koutou katoa. I kiwi mā, I koro mā, E rangatira mā tēnā koutou katoa. Your Worship Mayor Chadwick, fellow councillors, community board members, the Ottawa Standing Committee members, our Chief Executive Officer, Jeff Williams, can I sit down?
Yes.
Senior executive staff, my family, media, members of the public, my supporters, many of who are here, who are here today when I started. I thank you for the time that I've had around this table. Councillor Hunt, when she first got elected, people of Kararoa wondered what the hell had happened. We had the opening of the Kararoa swimming pool, and this woman turned up. I didn't know Karen at all. I just knew that she had stood for council and got elected, and she turned up with matching handbag, matching hats, matching outfit, matching shoes, and I thought, Jesus, she must think we're all part of the royal family around here. And since that day, I've become very good friends with Karen. In my hours of need, Karen has been there for me and my family quite often. And I thank you for that, Karen, from the bottom of my heart. My last civic duty was in Perth last week, where I met the Honourable Mayor Albert Jacob, who was Minister of Environment in the Western Australian government. And he got defeated at the previous election when Labor took over, and he became the Mayor of Joondalup. And in Joondalup they have 4-year terms for councillors and mayors. And every 2 years, half the council retire. Maybe that's something that we should look forward to keep new blood coming through, which we've had. In every term that I've stood, we have always had new blood come through, which is good. Might have been 1 or 2 or 2 or 3, but we have had new ideas coming to this table. Our former district engineer, Nico Clarkson, sends his best wishes to every one of you that he knew and worked with. And particularly, he had kind words for Karen, saying that she and Janet Webber were the 2 councillors he had to work with very closely. And then later on, in his just before he retired, he got to work very, very closely with our Deputy Mayor, Councillor Donaldson. And he said to pass on his regards to you all. He organised me to go to Perth's new stadium to watch the All Blacks get thrashed by Australia. I'll never forgive him for that. But that loss, I think, was the awakening that the All Blacks needed, because you saw what they did last Saturday at Eden Park, 36-0. But being seated 400 metres in the air, 6 from the top, being trained from his house, from and into the stadium, was an experience I'll never forget. And I've been to many stadiums in the world, and it would have to be the best. That loss, I think, will augurs well for us at the Rugby World Cup. I presented him, Madam Mayor, with 2 of Don Stefford's books, which you kindly gave to me, to the Mayor of Joondalup, plus a letter of introduction and a letter of support to him. But I also got made locally at one of our tourist operators cufflink boxes for the Mayor and for Nico as a parting gift of thank you. On one of them had the map of New Zealand and Paua, and the other one had the Koru pattern, which I thought was totally appropriate. So the 2 Don Stefford books will be ensconced in the library. I have, he gave me a gift which I'd now like to give to you, Your Worship. Picture our past, celebrating Joondalup's past together. And inside it is this letter dated the 13th of August. Now I want to read it to you. Welcome to the city of Joondalup. On behalf of the Joondalup Council, I welcome you to our city. It is a pleasure to meet you and present a small gift as a memento of your time here. Our city is home to world-class beaches along 17 kilometres of pristine coastline, as well as thriving sitting centre, numerous tourist attractions such as Hillary's Boat Harbour and the Joondalup Resort. And there, Karen, you will be interested to know they made a beach out of nothing that we're going to present at our lakefront. And I looked at it and I thought, in 20 years' time, we'll wonder what all the hullabaloo was about. But the activity that has come to Joondalup through that, creating that beach, is just phenomenal. And the Joondalup Resort. Popular events stimulate the local business economy, as I'm sure they do in Rotorua, and provide vibrancy for local residents and visitors from around Perth's metro area, as well as our tourists. The city also fosters and encourages healthy lifestyle opportunities for our community. I trust you will enjoy your visit to the city of Joondalup, and we look forward to welcoming you and your family and friends again soon. Signed, Albert Jacob Mayor. Now, when I went into his office, which was 4 times the size of yours, Jeff, he wanted to share a video with me, and 2 days prior to that, I sat there for 10 minutes watching he and his 2 children enjoy walking through the redwoods, walking through over the top, and everything that Rotorua provided. They then went on to Tongariro National Park and enjoyed that, and then flew to Queenstown. So they experienced New Zealand. Their children are 10 and 8, and they've already begged their parents that they want to come back to Rotorua. So hopefully, Your Worship, when you're re-elected, they will be able to share in hosting them to some of our treats in our city. Your Worship, 33 years in public life supported by my wife Denise. We celebrated our 40th wedding anniversary. Our children, Elizabeth, my son William in Brisbane, and Cameron, who couldn't make it today because he couldn't get time off work. The support of my in-laws, Margaret and Derek Sombra, through my council business and family pursuits can never be underestimated. Nonga taha, especially the Khans, the Morrisons, the Homars, the Rickers, and many other, including the Hendersons, the Gears, the Newports, the Moores, the Colberts, the Becketts, etc., etc. I can't name them all. But many are here today, and I acknowledge you all. Election after election, Don Newport, who's over here with his beautiful wife, Cameron and I, and all with us, as you have all done this term, and we were not forgetting it, are we, Karen? We're not regretting having to put up those bloody hoardings. And to many who delivered pamphlets for us, I thank you so much. Nongata, Hamarana, Kaharo, Rotawiti Rotorua, Maria Okiri, always supported me, and I hope I never let you down. I will miss this place, the politics, the staff one gets to know. Want to mention our democracy team, especially, headed by Una, Hilda, Isabel, Rick, who are the present ones, but we've had some fantastic democracy people over those 33 years. They are experts at their role, and they help with anything, and they get it from 13 sides. They don't take sides. They don't comment on what someone else has said or what their point of view is. They're total professionals, and I thank you, Una, and your team. In 33 years, I've served under 4 mayors, Kenny, Hall, Winter, and Chadwick, along with people like Joan Minty, Ross Orverton, Glenys Serene, Lyle Thurston, Johnny Lepper, my mate Warren Waka, who isn't with us, Janet Upa, all who worked so hard inside and outside this place to make Rotorua a better place. I do want to acknowledge my current councillors who have helped me during my sickness, particularly Karen, Rob Geen for your messages. You was also Amira Pika, Tania, you coming up to see me. Same with Dave, Deputy Dave, and my long-time mate, friend, Trevor Maxwell. He's been here the longest, 40-odd years. I'm the second longest serving councillor, and I'll hold that till the day I die. I want to applaud and acknowledge those people who brought new vision here, who we had a challenging CEO, and our senior staff to think differently and open up minds by engaging directly with the Te Arawa people was a highlight of my 33 years. My good mate Mori Orakingi, opened my eyes with our private discussions. He was an advocate of the Te Arawa way, and the Te Arawa partnership stands as the most innovative, most forward-thinking concept I've seen in my 33 years. The calibre of people that were elected by the Te Taru, by our two community boards, the Rural and the Lakes community boards, was also a highlight. I've forgotten what I've got to now. Oh, here we are, last one. Personally, the Energy Event Centre Working Party with John Short and Judy Kenny was my most satisfying project. Since I was diagnosed terminal in December 2017, I had such positive people around me to ensure I fought. The battle isn't over, but it's time to say goodbye to this chapter in my 63 years to date. And to people like Jeff William, Henry Weston, Star Ross, Steve Warney, and the person that I had most to do with, I hope he's here, is Rob Gesley. Rob took over a role from a guy who'd been entrenched in the job for a long, long time. And thank you for your professionalism, Rob, your vision and determination to do what's best for our district in the sport, recreation and play area. I hope you all get re-elected and continue the work done to date, which Karen opened my eyes. When I read the LTP and the annual plan, every project that I was involved with or had championed was included and had been funded and will occur. My beloved skate park. I will donate a mature kauai tree from our nursery, which I hope will be planted at the skate park when it's open. Again, thank you one and all. Above all, my wife Denise, Kakati Anoa, Haere, Haere. There's just one. I don't want my photo hung up in the green room. I just want a copy of my business card, which showed that I was the sports and recreation portfolio lead. So I wondered if that
So you were here.
could be hung up in our green room.
That's nice.
Thank you so much.
And Charles, because you've got your whole community here, I think you could be the mayor for morning tea. You did it.
Thank you.
I'm to take these.
Yes, please. I tried to get it, but I missed out big time, didn't I?
I might just have to change my... and I'm just wondering whether the governance team would come up and join me, please. Whoa. I'm going to just have to take a little breath there. That's a bit of a challenge you've set out there to be the final speaker following that, Charles. Karen and Charles, it's my pleasure to be the one on behalf of the organisation and the governance team to be able to share and reflect upon your time as councillors today here with everybody. And for those of you that are here joining us today, family and support people, for those of you who don't know me, I'm Una Hopkins and I'm the Corporate Planning and Governance Manager. Now, my team will often get asked, what do we do in governance? And the typical answer of creating agendas, organising calendars, capturing minutes, and dealing with iPad issues are just some of the things that we do. But our team like to think of their role as being the support people to you, the elected members, in order that you are making good decisions for the outcomes that Rotorua is seeking. And Charles and Karen, you are two people who make being able to fulfil and undertake that role a pleasure on a day-to-day basis. Karen, you have been probably our biggest supporter of trying new things. This has included looking at sustainability and efficiency strategies, like the removal of the old buff papers in your agendas, the introduction of the iPads and the gradual removal of the paper copy agendas. On top of this, Karen has supported and defended our move towards, sorry, I'm getting butterfingers, more user-friendly public documentation, supporting the desire for them to be more readable, to be more interactive, and to engage younger people and people who like to receive information in a more visually appealing context. And I really thank you for your support when we trialled the new interactive annual plan consultation document this year. It's much appreciated. Karen has always been the first to sign up to any public engagement and face-to-face engagement sessions. She's been the one championing and coming along to World Cafe events, pop-up shops, freezing away in containers and at market stands. She's put herself out there engaging and listening to our community and then bringing that feedback back into us so that we can help prepare all those reports and everything that you then go through to make those good decisions. Karen's chairing has been impeccable. She has always been well prepared and well engaged with everything on the agenda. Her meetings have always flowed, and she has displayed respect for and ensured that everybody has had their voice around the table. She's not entered into debate in her chairing role, but allowed everybody to have a voice, and then is able to share and put her case forward with her opinion right at the very end. Karen, thank you very much for encouraging us to think outside the square, to trial new things. You ooze style, and we will miss you flaunting your wonderful winter boots down the corridor. Charles, I'm not sure where to start. Charles has shared with us many laughs over the years, driven mainly from a very wicked sense of humour, and some of that I can't share here today. But that wicked sense of humour has ensured there's never been a dull moment in the office or at council functions. Charles knows he is a friendly rogue, but has always been gracious when he has received that fine friendly kick under the table or that nudge in the ribcage, aimed to regain order and get back to business. Charles has always been a big supporter of all of the staff at Rotorua Lakes Council, and you've always gone into bat for each and every one of us whenever it is needed. And guess what? You can actually get Charles to change his mind. An example of that has been his position on community boards. Charles's involvement on the Working Party for the representation in 2015 lays testament to that. At that particular time, we were toying with the idea of introducing new community boards. Charles took a bit of convincing. But then, through that piece of work, the engagement with the community and the feedback from everybody, the idea of introducing and consulting upon the introduction of a new rural community board came about. And look at how we all work today. And I can't talk about Charles and not refer to his passion for sport and rugby in particular. But not being a rugby fan, I can't really say much more than that. Only to say that what a task it is to keep Charles's excitement contained when the stadium secures an important games. No, and I'm sure he is the first in line for entry into the game on game night. Karen and Charles, you have both given to the people of Rotorua and to the family that is the Rotorua Lakes Council so much of yourselves, and sacrificed many personal and family times due to your passion to drive a positive future for the Rotorua district. I personally thank you on behalf of the governance team for all of your support, encouragement, understanding and guidance you have bestowed upon our small team. From the wider organisation, a huge thank you for your leadership and for the challenges you have thrown out to us, all of which have helped drive the district forward. Your inspiration, innovation and love for Rotorua will be missed by all the staff and by all around the table here today. We wish you both the very best with your next adventures you shall undertake, and we will all look forward to catching up with you from time to time in the corridors and out and about. I've just got a little blessing that I would like to say. May the road rise up to meet you. May the wind be always at your back. May the sun shine warm upon your face, the rain fall soft upon your fields, and until we meet again, may God hold you in the palm of his hand. I'm just now going to ask the governance team. We do have a wee gift of appreciation on behalf of the organisation to give to each of you. So, team, if you would like to do the honours, please. Oh yeah, Stacey, they'll come to you. Yes. And the last little gift that we've got here is some councillors may recall back in the day we had wooden name plaques, and we thought it was only fitting that Charles and Karen get a new plaque, and this time with your years of service on it as well. So.
Thank you, Una. On behalf of all of the staff of council, that's lovely. I don't think we'll open it up, but there is one person that does want to say a few words. I think he's the longest serving councillor and our cultural ambassador. Thank you, Councillor Maxwell.
My mate. Actually, it's quite funny. We've known one another longer than we've been on council, I think, and goes back a long, long way, and in many ways shared many of the same interests. We both thought there was only 2 rugby teams in Rotorua, Nongataha and the rest. And I'd like to just first of all, I listened to the speeches that were done by you, Madam Mayor, and Una, and listening both Karen and Charles. Tremendous. It just makes you think back to the things that make us all who we are and much closer together. So, aroha mai, Karen, if I say a bit more about my mate here, but I do also wish you the best for the future, you and Greg, and thank you for convincing me and changing my ways about brown paper bags into recycling that I opposed for a long time. Now I'm one of the biggest advocates about yellow bins and red bins. So thank you for that. Wish you the best. Charles, our mate, wish you the best for you and Denise and the whānau, and many, many memories. Your tamariki grew up at the same time my ones did, and I remember even one night where I think we were at it's now called the Sir Howard Morrison Centre, but Sir Howard had a show there, and your beautiful daughter Elizabeth sang in there. And it was Howard, he called out, "Charles, I bet you haven't got a dry eye in the house with all your, when the singing happened." Oh, tamariki. Mokopuna, halamai. Hea tingo tēnei, what's his name? Charlie. Kei whea hunter, your Ngāti Piki au Mokopuna. Oh, Nongata, number one. So yeah, look, this is important. I was going to touch on that. Your mokopuna were most precious, and with Denise. But I knew your parents as well. Worked at Department of Maori Affairs with your mum. And then also your in-laws, beautiful people, Derek and this beautiful lady, and of course attended their sad farewells as well with all the family. Charles, 33 years. Absolutely fantastic year. Can I touch on something that might explain part of the character of my mate here? Of course, behind me are passionate people from home also who supported our team, but Charles was also a very firm and very good rugby referee. Took no nonsense. And one time we were there down at our favourite rugby park, and our team was playing, Nongata was playing, or whoever else it was, but there was big fights going on in the match, and he was forever giving out instructions, and that in the end he said to the All Blacks, "Hickory, you're off. Arthur Stone, you're off." And we were standing on the sideline. "You can't do that, Charles. That's our All Blacks." "Yes, I can. And if you don't keep quiet, I'm going to put you out of the park too." I said, "But Anna Henderson's making more noise than me. You kick her out too." And he said, "Oh, no, won't do that. Rosie will be on to me." So we had that strong bond from out home, Charles. But the other one I do want to touch on here around council, your strong support for Taniwha Springs over many, many years for Ngāti Rangiwiwi. And they were here 20 years ago, and it'll be about 25 now. They packed the house out, and we lost the vote by a casting vote to do something about Taniwha Springs that we have done only in recent years now, that we should have done long ago. I know that the people are very grateful for that support. And the other one is, I do want to say this, and this affects both you and Karen, and the co-chair of the Royal Visit last year, Monty Morrison, is here, where you both were invited in your own right to be at that Royal Visit. And the invitations were at a tight premium because we are a big tribe in that here. But the the chairs and the committee. They wanted to acknowledge the beautiful support you have given to the Te Arawa Partnership. Even in our tangihanga, you attend them, our huis. So I wanted to touch on that it was good having you there for the royal visit. Can I also touch on about just the caring that has been shown? 3 years ago, we lost a councillor, Councillor Wepa, in the elections, and the following, after the Saturday, on the Monday, we were all in here, and it was a bit sad. And just like that, the three of us just said, hey, let's go up there, grab some flowers, had a cup of tea with her. And that's what I liked about the bond and the teamwork that we had here. Doing that, I kind of hadn't forgotten. And you know, she only lost her husband some months before that year, so it was a terrible year. So thank you for the opportunity, Madam Mayor, to express a few things that here, and so pleased to see all our whanaunga that are here with us, and I know they're going to join me in an appropriate haka that will show our true wairua and feelings towards our friends. Mā te atua koutou e manaki, kia ora no tātou katoa.
Lists of time. There were others that I'm sure would like to speak, but I think we need to keep moving. And for the
Madam
public.
Madam Chair, could I ask your indulgence? I think it would be nice for the community to hear what Charles's colleagues think. Would you mind?
I don't mind at all.
Thank you. I don't mean to be rude.
If you're, no, I don't mind at all. It was a request as well. Of course, these things are quite tightly managed, but yes, I think if that's appropriate, absolutely appropriate. Thank you. All right. Councillor Rotorua.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Karen and to Charles, obviously, you know, some lovely words have been said. But Karen, for me, what stands out for me as your councillor colleague is your integrity and your authenticity. And those are the words that when anybody talks about Karen, those are the things that come to mind. The fact that always you speak with respect. Sometimes when the issues have been difficult, you speak respectfully to the people who are sitting across the table from us, and they get a sense that you're listening with a willingness to understand, and that's to be appreciated. The opportunities you've given now for other people to be engaged and to communicate with council, that they don't have to make submissions. They can, as you go to the pop-ups and things like that. So you've allowed different thinking to come into council, and I will certainly miss you around the table. Your professionalism at all times, it stands out. You are one of the leaders of our cities, and no matter what you do in the future, that you take that with you. So I will miss you around the table. Kia ora, Karen. Now you, my dear. You know, there's an expression that they say, Charles, a bloody legend, and that is you, and that is you. What you have, Charles, is you have the people touch. You have the common touch, and people know that. You can talk to people from all walks of life, and your institutional knowledge, that will be missed around the table. But you have that common touch, and people know that whatever the issues are, whether it's housing, whether it's wastewater, whether it's the treatment plants, anything like that, you'll go into bat for them if you think it is a right and just cause. And that's wonderful. That is something that I will definitely miss. But you're standing up for Te Aroha when many people were elected at this table and didn't do what was right. And they let Te Aroha down, and you never did. And you were one of the first people that supported the Te Aroha partnership. You were always acknowledged Māori order. You know, those are the things that we look at, and that's leadership. I also want to acknowledge Denise. Do you know what I think is so wonderful? How beautifully you speak about your wife. Those are things too that are so important. You know, it's the women, it's the families, like our mayor who lost John during this term. Still got up in the morning and got on with the job, missing the people who you love. But you do the work that you have to do. And over the years, Denise has always been with you, and you speak so beautifully about your wife and your family. And now they're going to have you back, and they're going to be able to give you the attention that you need to, because you've given your everything to our city over many years. So go well, my friend, and may the good Lord look after you and Denise and your family.
If no one else wants to speak, thank you, Your Worship, for your indulgence. Look, I'll be quite brief. Charles, one thing I've always admired about you is that you've been the fearless champion of robust debate, and you've got stuck into any issue that's come to the table, but you've never held a grudge. It stays around the debating table, and it's not taken outside of here. And the other quality you have is an absolute unyielding love of this community. So kia kaha. Karen, my remaining classmate of 2007 election, you have been a mate and a mentor. I know that you've willingly grasped all the hospital pass tasks that have come your way, but I think the key thing I admire about Karen is her governance skills as a champion of women in governance, and her absolute fearlessness in the face of what at times has been, in my view, quite misogynistic bullying. But she stood staunch and she's got on with the job, and I absolutely admire you for that, Karen. So best wishes to you and Greg, and also Denise. Best wishes to you and Charles. And Your Worship, if there is no one else that wishes to speak, I move that after the adjournment we go into confidential.
I'll second that, Madam Chair. Aye.
Into public excluders, it's to adopt the minutes of the previous meeting, recommendations from other committees that were confidential, the request to approve a list of potential hearing commissioners for Plan Change 2, Pukehangi Heights, Rotorua Economic Development Limited Board appointments, Rotorua Regional Airport update, Plan Change 10 update, and the Chief Executive's performance and remuneration review for 2018 and 19. So we have a mover and a seconder. Yes.
Madam Chair, I was wondering if we could have a small adjournment so that we could see whānau to go.
No.
Oh,
as
yeah?
we are adjourning, that is on the, and we're having morning tea all together. So rather than waiting for us to go through the public excluded and then have morning tea, we've changed it that we go out there now. Yeah. Thank you. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Contrary? Carried. And thank you, everybody. You could feel an amazing feeling in this room today.